Okay, so let me say a few words about the NanoSafety cluster. Well, you obviously all know some things about the cluster. That's why you're here today. But I just bring maybe a little of an annual update, or the actions, the highlights of the last year, so to speak. And in case you need a reminder, you can see the members of the coordination team, myself, Andreas, Flemming, and the omnipresent Tassos. And goodness me, since I'm doing an annual update, what a year it has been. A little over 12, nearly 13 months ago, we were all happy in Copenhagen, not expecting what came to the world, never mind each one of us individually. But the NanoSafety cluster actually managed to stay very active, very, very prominent in our lives, I hope. And hopefully today and next Monday and in between, you might see a lot of evidence for this. So we all know who we are, but a little reflection is maybe not going to do us a harm. We really need to remember who we are sometimes, again, especially in difficult times like we're all experiencing now. So the NanoSafety cluster was initiated by the European Commission to ensure that all these wonderful projects doing nanosafety research stay connected. We've been going for about 10 years. And I would say that the NanoSafety cluster has 3 key roles. Everything else is just around these key roles, which is to represent you guys, each one of you in the audience, and some others who haven't been able to join us today, perhaps. So we are our community, nothing more, nothing less. So that doesn't only apply to the activities we take, but also to moving forward in the future. Perhaps this time more than ever in our 10 years of existence, we need our community to work with us in framing our future. We're also, of course, very closely connected with the European Commission, and indeed there's a two-way communication in terms of providing support and information and receiving updates of where the Commission would expect us to be and how we can actually strengthen our role in terms of the science we deliver to the world. And I say this because also ultimately our work aims to give the public confidence in science and in nanoscience specifically. So we should always remember that. Okay, so as I said, we've all been very busy bees over the last 12 months, despite everything else happening around us. So I'm doing a few little individual slides on the update at different levels. So the coordination team level, first of all, we have been very busy, keeping you busy, keeping you in touch, discussing internal and external priorities, engaging the community, organizing activities or supporting the organization of activities, engaging with individual groups, making sure that they're happy, they're active, they know where they're going, they get the feedback from us as and when necessary. So we have certainly perhaps spend most of our time, active time, for the NanoSafety cluster doing this. Also, in our spare time, we've been working on our strategic vision, and I'll say a little bit more about it later on. We have identified 2 very important key actions for the coordination team. First one, the support of the Malta Initiative, and you hear about that from Flemming after me. Second, the internationalization role of the cluster, and you hear more about that from Andreas after me also. Our working groups have been super busy as well. You have, of course, seen the evidence this morning. In fact, I think it's fair to say that we already, from what we've seen this morning, we exceeded not the expectations, but the level of accomplishment that we reached last year. And I think that's always been the objective. How can we do each year better than the last? And I think we definitely hit the mark this year. So the working groups have been very busy showing you what science we can showcase that's directly linked to the NanoSafety cluster. You hear a lot more, of course, later this afternoon. The working groups have not been static in their own roles, in their own presence. They have been working to optimize what they do, and this is sometimes through new leadership, and you will hear that. I've already mentioned, just to emphasize, there will be a recorded, brief, tiny teaser effectively from each working group after my presentation, and you will hear a little bit of an update of where each working group is at the moment, where we have new leadership, what they've been focusing on, where the old leadership decided to revamp, refocus, for example, working group C qualifies in the second grouping, what they've done to refocus their activities. You will also see what each individual working group has been doing as an overview, and each one is very different. Each one has its own priorities, internally designed and tailored really to their community, to their sub-community. So I hope that will come through in the working group presentations. Of course, there's been a huge amount of activity in each one of your projects at individual project level, where we could and where we were asked and required. We supported these activities. It was a pleasure to attend some events. The first two that came to mind, the Nano Harmony project event for several days a few weeks ago, Smart Nano Talks closing event. Amazing opportunities. The Smart Nano Talks was over the summer. Apologies. Again, amazing opportunities to see either where a project has been or where it's heading. There's been other project activities. Please forgive those projects who didn't hear the names. Please forgive me. It's not that I didn't pay attention. It's just that there has been so much. But anyone who wants to track any previous activities or indeed any future activities, please don't forget the calendar on the NanoSafety cluster website. And of course, all these events were actually promoted, supported, participated by our community, by you guys listening to me today, and that is why the events were a success. In terms of dissemination, it's really important to emphasize, and again, you hear it in the working group presentations a little bit later, that the cluster and its dissemination group didn't sit still waiting for the pandemic to pass, but it actually responded with great agility to the new conditions. They started organizing web-delivered events. We had a number of webinars that were really very successful. We have, of course, this meeting we're here to attending today, and it would be a huge omission on my part to not say a huge thank you to Martin and Stella for absolute amazing work and hours and hours and hours of preparation, which I hope is showing today, because they are really delivering an amazing event. I should also mention our newsletter. We have a quarterly newsletter. I do hope everyone knows, but should anyone have forgotten, please remember, in fact, we're preparing now the winter issue. So any news items you think you would like to share with a cluster, please go on the website, link or find the newsletter page and submit your items. And again, a huge thank you to Leslie and also to Claire for putting so much effort in this newsletter. Please go and read, if you haven't already, the last issue. It was a bumper issue. I haven't seen a larger issue in all my years in the NanoSafety cluster. So really, there is a lot going on. Also, in terms of dissemination activities, of course, we supported earlier this year the US-EU communities of research. We also supported a number of other international activities, and I just want to not miss the opportunity to emphasize it, but you hear a lot more from Andreas later. And I would just like to spend literally, how long have I got? Maybe 2 minutes. I don't have much longer, looking forward, because I think it's important, especially now. First of all, it's worth reminding ourselves that we really haven't been static. The NanoSafety cluster has been continuously remodeling itself to follow what's necessary to adapt to what's happening around us. So data has never been more important, for example, particularly looking after our data, curating, making them fair. You heard it all this morning, but just think a year or two ago that the issue of data didn't even exist. So I hope it shows the agility with which we moved as a community. Also, I think it's notable to emphasize how well the grouped projects have worked together. The projects in governance, for example, that are a nice little community, a recently created community on Safe by Design, again, projects working together, and I hope the evidence will be very clear to you by the end of this event. And also, when new opportunities arise, good example, micro and nanoplastics, we jump on board, we don't wait, we make the most of what we can as a community for the greater good, I guess. So, where are we going now? We certainly start in the small scale. Our website is pretty much our heart, our beating heart, representing the community and engaging with the community. It's there 24/7. So it's critically important to our communication with you and the world. So in January, we're starting a new revamp, and those of you who have been around know it's been before. We've revamped it before, but we want to stay active and ensure that it delivers what you guys have been asking for. On a slightly larger scale, now is time to review who we are, what we're called, perhaps even, because things have changed, and my next couple of slides will be about all the change. So we need to define a new strategy, a new vision, and a new roadmap, and we need you to actually be part of this. So please stay engaged, stay active, because business as usual is no longer an option, and I hope that's already clear. But let me show you my next couple of slides to clarify why that is. Well, first of all, we have a brand new framework program, and I hope people have started engaging with what might be coming through this framework program, but certainly huge changes compared to what we were used to in Horizon 2020. We have the European Green Deal, and we have the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. Again, defining a very different environment that we have to move with the times and be part of. I highlighted two little things in each one of these key drivers, the European Green Deal. Those of you who haven't read it, please read it cover to cover as I have done, because it tells you so much that you need to know. It shows very clearly that nanotechnology is absolutely central in the delivery of all these amazing expectations that the European Green Deal has of our continent and of our society. Anything from climate, the climate ambition, zero pollution, farm to fork, excuse me. Each green box in this slide is something that actually cannot be delivered, I would be bold enough to state, without nanotechnology. nanotechnology. So here's where we are. And I can see Søren has just joined us, which is absolutely fantastic. So I will very quickly finish and pass the microphone to him. So talking about key drivers, chemical strategy for sustainability, again, a central document to where the future is lying. My highlights from this document is that now we don't just do safe by design. We have to be safe and sustainable by design. So we need to move things a notch for the importance of it being societally urgent and also economically an opportunity. There will be a simplification and strengthening of the chemical legal framework. And again, I see a huge role in our community through our development of modeling, of read across activities in supporting this simplification, which cannot happen any other way, frankly. And finally, I picked up review definition of nanomaterial in the chemical strategy for sustainability. So again, something for us to be active on. I would like to say, please don't forget the NanoSafety cluster is your vehicle. I would like to, I think this slide is supposed to say thank you, but it's somehow changed the format a little bit and it looks strange. I would like to thank the audience, but really also, I do not want to forget to thank past and present members of our key delivery vehicles of the coordination team. Isolde Lynch, a big thank you for all she did before stepping down. The working groups, all members of working groups that stepped down have been absolutely fantastic. Steering group, of course, all projects that finished and coordinators stepped down have also given us so much. So I would thank everybody again for listening, and maybe we would like to move to Søren now.
I think that the development of advanced materials and nanomaterials has increased tremendously over the last decade. And now we are seeing some very strongly enhanced functionality and adaptability of the materials. For us, it's very exciting to witness all these new capabilities when you are a material scientist, because it yields new dimensions for material solutions, and that's quite important also for society. But we have all these functionalities. The problem is that it comes with a price, and this price is very often an enhanced complexity of the materials that leads to difficulties for recycling and reuse, as well as an increased carbon footprint simply because of the complexity, and also a potential toxicity problem together with through the product life cycle. So with the launch of the Commission's European Green Deal and its focus on zero pollution and sustainability, the Commission a couple of weeks ago presented a new chemical strategy for sustainability that should facilitate safe and more sustainable materials in general, with less use of scarce and potentially toxic elements. Considering the boundaries of our planet's resources and the current drive towards less waste, less toxic products with longer lifetime and better recyclability, we need to rethink how we design, produce, and make new products and the associated nanomaterials. Today, we are linked very strongly, and we depend on each other. And the value chains that we are using are often very complex and efficient, but they are also very fragile at times, as we are presently witnessing. All the stakeholders that are together need to commit to the work of resilience of the global value chains, and it's an individual responsibility for every one of us in every single link to assure it. In the context of the COVID-19 crisis, it has become very clear that before we need to accelerate the process, we also need to look at the testing and the safety of them. This allows us to benefit to a larger extent from the vast potential of materials in general, and it will contribute to find faster and more effective solutions to provide additional tools to tackle all the different crises that we may come to, and also the one we are in presently. And then we can overcome its detrimental effects on our economy and society. I would like to tell you all that we are committed to the development of safe and sustainable materials by design, and we are presently working on a plan to implement this. Part of this plan is the topics that have been designed also together with your help, that are foreseen in the work program of Horizon Europe in the first year. The topics we are thinking about is the one which is called Safe and Sustainable by Design Polymeric Materials. It's safe and sustainable by design metallic coatings and engineered surfaces, and safe and sustainable by design organic and hybrid coatings. They're all research topics that are very important, and one of the reasons that they are so important is because they have a big market and they also have a big impact. These are commodities which have a very, very wide reach, and that's also why we're trying to use those the first. But it's not only the topics in the work program, but it's also the further development of the overall concept of safe and sustainable by design, which is embedded in the chemical strategy for sustainability that we are at the moment trying to pursue. And we actually need your collaboration with this. We cannot do it without you, but we also need to extend this towards the industry and other stakeholders. And therefore, we have an additional topic in the work program that is called Establishing an EU-wide Sustainable by Design Materials Community to support embedding sustainability criteria over the life cycle of products and processes. And this is where we need your help together with the industry, because it's not only an academic exercise. This is a practical rollout. And therefore, as I said, we need your help, and also we need to work together to achieve these goals. And with this, I would like to wish you a successful conference, even though I can't hear you, and I will probably log off now because it's a little bit tedious to hear yourself talk, but I wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. This is Flemming Cassee from the coordination team NanoSafety cluster and also advisory board member of the Malta Initiative. And I will expand a bit on what the Malta Initiative is and how it relates with the NanoSafety cluster. So the cluster is about European targets for safe and sustainable nanomaterials and nanotechnology. And we try to contribute by ensuring environmental health and safety aspects for this key enabling technology. We have quite a number of projects ongoing. Some have been finished recently, but there are still 23 ongoing projects that cover most aspects in the nanosafety area. OECD is an organization that provides test guidelines, and those are kind of standard operating procedures that if you follow those procedures, the data from your work, experiments, studies will be accepted automatically by all member states, also avoiding duplication and replication of tests. In particular for in vivo studies, it's quite important. These test guidelines and also guidance documents are traditionally for chemical substances and now should also be applied and making applicable for nanomaterials. And for a number of endpoints, however, these test guidelines do not address specific information requirements for dealing with nanomaterials or are considered not applicable for testing of nanomaterials. A number of years ago, the EU, via Georgios Katalogiannis, offered the OECD that the nanosafety research projects could provide information and support for contributing to test guidelines. At that time, it were 9 in place and selected by the OECD. By sharing the knowledge that was developed by the cluster projects, host and organize a workshop, dedicated knowledge transfer, round-robin testing, and also some coordination actions. This then resulted in what is called the Malta Initiative. Research support for regulatory needs. The aim is to revise these OECD test guidelines, make them suitable for nanomaterials, but mainly to speed up that process, because sometimes it can last quite long, and that's often due to a lack of capacity of knowledge. So there is a strong focus on the connection with REACH, the European Chemical legislation, but this is an activity where we can do a lot in terms of sharing information. The initiative was taken by Anke Jesse from the Federal Ministry of Nature, Conservation and Nuclear Safety from Germany, and is from day to day coordinated by Thomas Koolboes from the Federal Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, also in Germany. The OECD has selected now even more projects or test guidelines for updating or development, and there are 4 categories: environmental fate and behavior, that captures, for instance, behavior in soil and other aspects. We have health effects as a cluster for in vitro genotoxicity, DNA damage, colony forming efficiency, and also biodistribution. And then there's effects on biotic systems. There's guidance documents for aquatic and sediment toxicity testing of nanomaterials, and also a COMET assay using Daphnia magna. And the last cluster is are the physical chemical properties on, for instance, dustiness, particle counting, surface hydrophobicity, and the toxin contamination. Now, most of these activities are also captured by projects like Gov4Nano and NanoHarmony. They have dedicated tasks there for developing or updating test guidelines, but there is quite a number of projects from the OECD that are not yet covered by these 2 projects, and for which I've been asked to make the connection with ongoing NanoSafety cluster. The question may be, okay, how can I be involved in that? And well, I've recently sent all coordinators a list of the Malta Initiative projects with description of each of the activities, but also a short description of what is needed, and there should be a link made with what NanoSafety cluster projects can contribute. But if you as an individual also have ideas that somehow you can share knowledge, data, or participate in workshop or round-robin testing based on your expertise, please contact me, and I'll make sure that we get a connection with the ongoing Malta Initiative projects. And with that, I thank you.
It is my pleasure to herewith give a short overview on the current state of the NanoSafety Cluster Working Group A on education, training and communication. This is Martin Himli from the University of Salzburg, and you see here also my co-chair Stella Stojkeva from Jordas Group. We have taken over the working group this year in April, and since then have started to pursue our formulated ambition for the working group, which is to cross-link the current NanoSafety cluster projects and their activities, also activities from other working groups, aiming to gain a maximal outreach for all of us. We intend to do this by aligning all training offers to the different individual projects, but also beyond. So, for instance, we may think of upcoming topics highly relevant for us, of course, such as emerging contaminants, e.g., microplastics, are an issue, where we may strongly contribute, actually. We need to look into the safety aspects of advanced or innovative materials, materials for future, or of course into what we can offer for the health sector, so e.g. for the area of nanomedicine. We actually want to facilitate a transition of the achievements from several decades of nanosafety research into the new framework program of Horizon Europe, so to sustainable innovation or green development. This ambition is therefore linked to connect to external stakeholders, external from what we eventually have used to work with so far, a closer cooperation with the industry or different sectors, including the pharma sector, of course. Much data has been generated by many projects of the NanoSafety cluster. We now stand at the point where we need to fill the gaps of things that are not yet well understood, to combine certain features or to deduce knowledge from them. Certainly this puts a demand on the use of e-tools, electronic tools, nanoinformatics, which we have started to promote in our first initiatives before the past summer. We strongly intend to fill the gaps of knowledge, to combat data fragmentation, and to push data fairness. Saying this, I have arrived at the current activities. We have started an online training series, which in parallel with the COVID pandemic and its demands for an online meeting has been quite successful attended. Pushing e-tools in nanosafety on data fairness, this initiative was well in line with the training and education activities of the NanoCommons Research Infrastructure Project. We have picked up again to conduct webinars, regular webinars, as we intend to do. So we had, for example, Aaron Erderly and his team from the NIOSH giving a webinar on CNTs, and we will, actually, I have the okay from some members of the, I guess it was work group B, to continue with webinars on the task force on carbon nanotubes. After this NanoSafe conference, of course, which took much of our efforts in the past weeks and months. So coming here to the picture which you see on the right side, at the NanoSafe conference, digital conference, our working group is in charge of designing and organizing 2 entire days for the NanoSafety cluster, which is first the NanoSafety cluster education day, so actually today. And I really hope that this is considered a successful online gathering with lots of discussion, take-home messages, aha experiences, fruitful new insights, and much more. And next Monday, we will be having the NanoSafety Cluster Training Day, where we will have 2 parallel sessions of trainings in modeling tools, so nanoinformatics, e.g., or having insight into advanced cell culture techniques or imaging techniques, into nanomaterials characterization, science diplomacy, or nanorisk governance, for example. I can further announce that the traditional Venice School is envisioned for March 2021, and we still hope to be able to have this as a physical event. Carries the title From Basic Science to Risk Governance, so will in more detail than today be able to educate young researchers in the entire picture of what nanosafety research has been endeavored to deliver. Here on the bottom right, you see a bird's eye view on the island of San Servolo, where the event is hopefully going to take place, so the spring school next year. Thank you for listening. This was a short update from our work group on education, training, and communication. On the left side, you see our email addresses, so mine and Stella's, and we are certainly available at any time for any further question or concern or proposal from the cluster on training efforts.
For Working Group B, Materials and Standards, we have a new team, George as a co-chair and myself, Miguel, as a chair. What we want to do is basically put an emphasis on the key metrics to assess nanomaterials' harmful impact. So we want to foster interaction between working groups on our key pillars, materials, fabrication, and characterization, with an emphasis on the data to make sure they are fair. And what we want to do is not only to keep it focused within Europe, but also outreach outside Europe, for instance, through the EU-US communities of research. Within this perspective, what we will do is to promote the discussion among the different working groups to help better identify the standard materials for toxicological testing, to foster the participation and to propose the development of interlaboratory comparisons, and to interact with running projects and identify the upcoming projects. With the idea of identifying materials, of identifying characterization techniques, and also in a broader scope to interact with the European Materials Characterization Council.
This short presentation will give you an introduction in the current activities and plans in Working Group C on exposure and hazard assessment. And last year, as you may be aware, we changed the structure of this working group because it was too big to be manageable, and it focused on a lot of different topics. So we subdivided the Working Group C in 4 subgroups, one on humor exposure, which is chaired by myself. Then there is one on human hazard assessment, chaired by Vicky Stone. There is a sub-working group C3 on environmental exposure, chaired by Klaus Svensson and Soko Vasquez. And the 4th one on ecotoxicology. And the objectives that we have as an entire working group is to encourage the sharing of project methods and techniques, and we do that in various EU-funded nano projects. In addition to this method and techniques, we also try to encourage the sharing and cross-project extraction and preparation of analysis of samples. Furthermore, which is very important, and we do this in collaboration with Working Group F, is the sharing of project data during the project, but also after the project has ended, concerning the FAIR principles that will be touched upon in Working Group F. And obviously the dissemination of results is very important. There's a Working Group A on training and education, but we also try to encourage this from the Working Group C. The current activities and plans for our working group is a SEN round-robin testing to characterize nanomaterials by electron microscopy and local centers, and this is done under a NOAA mandate funded by the European Commission. We deliver a lot of contributions to the Malta project and OECD activities in various EC-funded projects. We stimulate the harmonization of data collection, the analysis and the reporting of all the data that come from the EU-funded project. We develop and agree amongst the research priorities. We have contributed and still contribute to the US-EU community of research on NanoSafety, and we further stimulate these joint activities with the course. We have discussions with the ECRs with a view of being involved in the direction of the working group. We try to further interact with the research community and all the different stakeholders in the nano and the micro-sized plastics, which seems to be a new topic and an interesting area. We transfer the knowledge and all the experience that we have on exposure and hazard assessment further into the safe by design strategy. So in the beginning of the NanoSafety cluster, a lot of fundamental research was done on hazard and exposure assessment. Now this seems to be transferring into the safe by design strategies. And last but not least, also to translate this current state of the knowledge on exposure and hazard assessment into the nano risk governance, which is done in the NMBP 13 project. Thank you.
For what concerns Working Group D, models and tools for risk assessment, we have currently some activities ongoing and some which are planned for the next months. At the moment, for the ongoing activities, we are working on 3 different papers, which will be common position paper on the different aspects of risk assessment. The first paper we are working on is about the importance of the correct dose metrics in nanorisk assessment. Then we have another one which will deal on how did past and how will future nanoinformatics project contribute to a European US nanoinformatics roadmap. And the last one is how to use omics, and in particular proteomics data, in nano risk assessment, looking at the regulatory framework. All the papers are in a different stage of maturity, but we will make sure that we circulate them to the NanoSafety cluster when they are in a readable status. For future activities, what we plan is to reinforce our activities in the Working Group D by involving recently granted projects under different calls.
Workgroup F on data management has held monthly telcons to exchange project activities and progress reports on the projects involved. Besides that, we also had a couple of dedicated tasks, for example, about fair analysis of our NanoSafety resources to make sure that the information is actually reusable. We also worked on the ontologies and metadata, integrating the effort of the various projects. We had a bioschemas webinar, we worked on the European Registry of Materials, and we developed a proposal for an in-sheet for nanomaterials, an extension of the current work. And this resulted in a couple of articles, one about the fair analysis, one about the metadata, a paper about the in-sheet in preparation, and a poster about the ontology. In the next period, we are continuing this work, for example, looking at fair metrics, which describe better what we want in reusable nanosafety data. We have an upcoming webinar about the personalized health framework, and we are working on finishing two articles. Workgroup F is nothing without the participants, and here we have an overview of the projects that have been involved in the last year, and I would like to thank everyone representing those projects and have been active in Workgroup F. Thank you.
Hello, I'm presenting Working Group G on regulations and risk governance. The Working Group very much understands itself as a bridge between regulatory science and policy, emphasizing here the fact that the science must be of regulatory relevance. The Working Group only just restructured itself and reconfirmed a number of players stemming from different projects who are creating a core group. The overall Working Group participation consists of representatives from governmental knowledge, research institutes and agencies involved in regulatory science and risk analysis. The objectives of the Working Group are first and foremost to create a translation of regulatory questions into research questions and vice versa. In that, it provides an overview of knowledge that is ripe for implementation in guidance and guidelines, but it also wants to foster an acceptance by regulatory risk assessors and standardization bodies of entirely new concepts such as safe by design. First and foremost, the plans and activities are to build the community and to allow people to self-identify with the community, and out of that community to provide support for relevant EU actions and international nanosafety community actions.
Thanks. Good. All right. Internationalization. As you see on the screen, and as you know already, the safety cluster is a group that wants to support the international collaboration. And for this, we tried to a little bit formalize our vision in this internationalization field, which means that we want to support the establishment of sustainable connections and collaboration between the nanosafety cluster and other communities, of course, and of course with all interested countries from whatever continent coming from. Why we want to do this? Because we want to expand the common knowledge base for materials of regulatory significance and to support the needs of various stakeholders, including the regulatory bodies and industry, which fits quite nicely to what Søren said in his short statement, that he wants us to bridge this kind of gap which is there and to more include different kind of stakeholders in our work. Why this topic comes up in today's meeting? As I already said, from the safety cluster, we support this international collaboration. There have been several workshops, delegations, etc. Performed. One of those I want to mention is the EU-Asia dialogue on NanoSafety. And there was also the step forward from discussions to implementation, which means we want to connect and to strengthen the collaborations. Here is a screenshot which you can find on the NanoSafety Cluster webpage, where you can see that several different kinds of collaboration are already ongoing, which means that we do have collaborations of the project, of course, where there's just a snapshot on some of the projects. Please don't kill me for not having all the projects there. We also do see the clear items of collaboration with different countries, where we want to come back in a minute. And of course, the interaction with organizations, as Flemming presented in his talk already, of course, with the Malta Initiative, there's a lot coordinated action going on at the moment. Other things like in the working group B was mentioned for standardization with ISO and CEN, and so on and so on. So I mentioned shortly the EU-Asia dialogue. This is why I have made a circle around the Asian Nano Forum collaboration, which is, let's say, going beyond one country. It's more countries involved. This is why it's quite a good starting point, it seems, to step forward. What we want to achieve is, and what was a clear message from the beginning of this dialogue event, is towards collaboration without borders. Therefore, in the recent EU-Asia dialogue, which was, of course, held virtually, there was a nice presentation by Ali Baitolahi from Iran, who presented his vision of and his first implementation ideas towards a standardization corporation. We were taking up this ball and asked to develop a kind of collaboration concept for the entire international networks initiative. You shall have received via the NanoSafety Cluster community mailing list the invitation to nominate yourself, to volunteer, to be part of this initiative and to be an active member of this. Why we did this? Because we want to strengthen the interaction by having a good concept and an approach which helps us to deliver something. So the feedback up to now has been that there are some volunteers. I'm very happy that Alexander Bogani from Austrian Ministry has volunteered to co-coordinate this process a little bit from his side. Why? Because he is active member of the Asian Nano Forum. He is a member of the program committee of the European Commission, and he is a national government employee, which shall make him in a position to be able to somehow make a balanced stepping forward. I had to commit myself to support him with this job, so I did it just to make this clear from this point of view. And up to now, the committee candidates, so those who have happily volunteered to get active here, are here. I'm happy that Steffi Friedrichs, with vast experience from long time in different projects as well as in the policy field and so on, has volunteered to become a member of this. Also, she is coordinator of the NanoFabNet project, which can be one of the brand marks for the future. We do have a volunteering of Daniel Ristosov. I think also most of you know Daniel already from several projects. And he also said that he's already planning some kind of international activity in the frame of Go4Nano project. Patricia Farias is an interesting connecting point. She will be partner of one of the upcoming projects that have been recently receiving funding. I think it's called Diagonal, if I'm not 100% right, please correct me later. She is also based in Austria and as well as in Brazil, which might also be supportive for having some links. And we got the nomination from Apostolos Sarmatonidis, who is working in LATAT in Spain, which means we do have already some people here in this committee, and my proposal will be to make all of them active partners in this committee already. What I definitely also want to open to all of you here in the room is that you can still volunteer for supporting this initiative. I'm sure people will be happy to include further knowledge, further collaboration, willingness in this activity. In that point, I want to also mention some more things about this. From the Asian Nano Forum side and from the Asian side, we do have already some international members for that committee, which in this case is Ali Baitolai, who was also one of the initiators of this initiative. It's Vani Chinzirikul from Nanotech in Thailand. It's Dinkur Lee, at the moment president of the Asian Nano Forum. He comes from a university in Taiwan. And what is also very good to know is that one of the colleagues who came back to us after we called for the volunteers for the NanoSafety cluster community list was Shuhei Tsuruoka from Shinshu University in Nagano in Japan, which makes us clear that we are already internationally outreaching with the NanoSafety cluster. So we are really happy to also have received this nomination. Furthermore, it's a pleasure to say we do have informal observers from the European Commission for this activity. It will be Alexandra Malushka and Alessia Amodio from the European Commission, from the department from Søren. And as far as I know, both might be listening to my presentation now. So also a warm welcome to you in this activity. What are the next steps? This afternoon, we do have the NanoSafety Cluster Steering Group meeting, in which all the project coordinators can make the final decision if they would agree with this proposal for the committee. After that, there will be a circulation of a doodle for a first virtual meeting of this committee. And from that point on, the core part is to develop a collaboration concept for this international network initiative, which shall be done by this group. So for now, I can open the floor for questions, remarks, comments, and of course, if you are able and you want to volunteer, you are more than welcome to bring some efforts to this initiative. So my final word is to say thank you. Of course, our work is also supported by some of the European projects, and here you can see a picture of my team. Thanks to my team, especially that they manage these difficult times by sticking together and coping with the distance working. This was a nice time where we could join our faces at the same place. Yeah, my contact details all are here, and I think with this I can give back to you, Éva, and of course have a look into the chat if there came in any questions. Okay, I see that Niels Bogar from DECHEMA is wanting to contribute, especially to also further link the nanomedical community through the ETPN and the working group safety and characterization from that side. That's very good. I think, Niels, I got it right that you meant community instead of country there. Yes, totally fine. I would be very happy if you can send a one-liner afterwards to me, just to get your contact details in the right way, and that we can enter there. Okay, one more question from Giancarlo. Specific requirements to volunteers. Yeah, especially you should have a kind of idea of what is the community like, what aspects you think would be important to step forward for things like expert exchange, like maybe joint research projects, joint activities, standardization activities. So to have a little bit of good knowledge and overview of different things that are ongoing and that you see would be supported by an international network initiative. Because at the end there should come out a concept paper which we can hand over to certain groups around the world to motivate for further international collaboration and to bring together the entire community in this field. I hope this answers your question, Giancarlo. Thank you, Sean. I think Eva will like your message about the Brexit. Okay. Yes, of course. Fleming said any international countries who are interested to join this initiative are more than welcome. This is a starting point, as I said before, and the key point will be that we come to a certain progress during the next weeks and months. And as Flemming stated here in his comment, of course, representatives from other regions and countries are more than welcome. Thanks.